My Lords, I say at the outset that I cherish my European citizenship and regret its loss when or if, dare I say it, if Brexit becomes law. I identified myself as a British patriot and a European when I went to Berlin and other war-torn cities on the continent with little more than £5 in my pocket at the age of 17. I stayed with Social Democrat families who welcomed me into their homes, and Europe is part of my DNA. It transcends treaties and bureaucracy. For a time, I sat in the European Parliament, but preferred Westminster. And this isn't the first time that the Tory party has torn itself apart on this issue. As Speaker of the Commons, I watched the Tory party tear itself apart during the Maastricht debates. I feared the worst when David Cameron allied his party with the far right in Strasbourg, and even more so when he caved into his right-wingers and media pressure by calling the 2016 referendum. He thought he could win, but says he didn't mind losing. I did mind. Theresa May, whose tenacity commands respect, has been struggling to keep her party together ever since. Her government stumbles from one expediency to another, unimpeded by a dithering leader of Her Majesty's opposition whose only consistency is evasion. My Lords, I'm not a devotee of referenda. I rather enjoy general elections. But general elections are not single-issue events. They cover a host of issues. I believe a general election is not the way to settle the European question. After 2 years, we're now more aware of the minuses and the pluses, and the people must determine this single issue. And I urge backbenchers in the Commons to reject the pretensions of ministers who say, and I quote Dr. Fox, International Trade Secretary, that a second referendum would put us in unprecedented territory with unknown consequences. My Lords, we have been wandering in the wilderness since Mrs. May lost her majority in the election. I wonder how high Dr. Fox was flying when he dreamed that one up. In my book, you know, if a democracy can't be allowed to change its mind, it ceases to be a democracy. And I asked the noble Lord, the government minister, when he winds up, what is the government afraid of in refusing a people's vote? And in answering to that question, would he please explain to young people who have reached adulthood why they don't have the right to be heard on an issue our generation has manifestly bodged? Brexit will shape these youngsters' futures for the next 50 years, not ours. I have no children, I have no grandchildren. My quality of life won't be affected. I'm all right, Jack. But what about the Jack and Jills out there? Are they to be stripped of their rights on the whim of those who peddled rubbish in a referendum and are afraid to be challenged in another? I was a government whip when Harold Wilson was Prime Minister. He said that anyone who claimed that membership of the European community was a black and white issue was either a charlatan or a simpleton. I leave your lordships to adjudicate on that one. But which brings me to Mr. Boris Johnson. His campaign boss didn't proclaim say yes or no, say yes to a no deal. We were promised an easy ride with a cash bonus thrown in. The question on the ballot paper didn't ask us to choose between a hard Brexit or a soft one, for a Canadian or a Norway plus deal, or a deal that would separate Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom. Nobody dreamed we would be frantically now preparing for worst case scenarios. And we're now paying the price for a referendum that was dominated by falsehoods. Brexiteers promised the world, but ignored the social and political realities festering in our own country. Now Parliament is convulsed, Whitehall is pulverised, Downing Street has become a drop-in for chilled wine and persuasive chats, while industry and business are alarmed and our friends and allies are bewildered. Who can possibly blame them? My Lords, in yesterday's Sunday Express, Mrs. May said, "Some of you put your trust in the political process for the first time in decades. We cannot and must not let you down." But voters were let down, all of them. Both sides failed to focus on the issues that mattered most to them. Look at the Electoral Commission's report. It said that many voters were unclear about the consequences of victory for either side and didn't know the answers to questions they expected to be at the heart of the campaign. Both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition should heed that report and listen to the voice of a young generation who were right to be part of the decisions affecting their future. My Lords, many years ago a debate took place in the Commons that changed the course of the war. Backbenchers played a pivotal role then, and I hope will do so tomorrow. My message to them is, backbenchers, arise and forget your party allegiance. National interest demands it. Yeah.